Hello, my name is Debbie Alligator Stitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 21. Today is Thursday, October 28th, 2021. This is a video mainly about cross stitch, but a little bit about what I'm reading and watching and life thrown in. For those of you who are returning viewers, thank you for coming back and watching me every couple of weeks. And if you're new here, welcome. I hope that you like what you see and you'll click on that subscribe button. Thank you to everyone who left comments on my previous videos. I really enjoy interacting with you. Before I jump in and show you all of my stitching, I want to mention someone who's in the Under 1000 Subs Club. This is an opportunity for Flosstubers to highlight other Flosstubers who don't yet have 1,000 subscribers. YouTube gives you additional benefits when you hit that magic 1,000 numbers. Apparently they actually have changed some of it, so now if you hit 500, and I'm one viewer away from 500, you do get some benefits like being able to post on the community tab, but having 1,000 just sort of enables you to do other things, including monetize your channel if that's what you choose to do. So the stitcher I'd like to highlight this week is Stitching Brit. As you can guess by her YouTube name, she is based in the United Kingdom, and she does a wide variety of stitching, and she does a lot of full coverage as well as Mirabilia and Pretty Ladies. And I just really enjoy watching her videos and what she stitches. So if you are into those things like I am, I suggest that you go and take a look at Stitching Brit. So I'm going to go ahead and show you my stitching, and as many of you know, I play a lot of the various games on Facebook, and that helps direct when I'm stitching on each week. So the first piece that I'm going to show you, which is actually one that's not usually influenced by the game, it's my oldest project. It is Artecy's Old World Map. And this is my oldest project, and so I try and pull it out almost every day and work on it for a half hour, 45 minutes. I would say in September I was horrible about that, so in October I really doubled down and tried to get more work on it. I also had set a goal for myself to get sort of this gold patch under here finished, which is, it was a couple hundred stitches. It wasn't a huge number of stitches, and there were already a few in there. But what I would do is take a color and then, I'd clip it off from the skein, and then I want to use up that whole, whatever I cut off before I moved on to the next color. So as you can tell, there's a lot of golds and some browns down there, and those colors sort of, a lot of them were in here, which is the top of one part of the map, coming into here, and some of the clothing up here. And so I've now completed, there's sort of, this is one, I think it's line 130, going down. That's sort of what I want to get done. And so I've sort of finished this gold area here, and I'm now moving on to the actual map and pulling colors. And so this is Northern Asia. So it's sort of exciting to actually to work on the map. And so again, I'd like to, at the end of this year, move the Q-snap. I'm certainly not going to get all of this done to get like a fresh new look, but if I can at least get it to the halfway point, then I can focus on doing the next section next year. But I'm back to enjoying this. When we were so restricted during the quarantine, looking at maps was just not inspiring to me because it reminded me that we couldn't go anywhere. And not that I'm traveling much right now, but now it's I don't want to see we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but I think at least we're going to find a way to exist in the new normal, so to speak. So it inspires me to pull this out and just think about all the places I can go. Not sure I really want to go to Northern Asia. This is like Siberia. It's cold. I'm a Floridian. I like warmth, but nonetheless, it just, it does make me think about travel, and I enjoy that. The next piece, which I show almost every video as well, is Cat from the Toy Box. This is a Heaven and Earth Designs artwork by Lesley Anne Ivory. And here is where I am on this. So I probably put in a couple thousand stitches since I showed it last time. Did a lot more on the kitty's sort of the colors on her back. Did quite a bit of colors here as well on this border. And one of the things I was excited about was I did a little bit of black in the eyes of the cat. So now she's starting to look a little bit more defined. And so before it was sort of this like vacant look kitty, and so now we're starting to get a little bit more. I think, and this is just the way that I've cut this off, just where my Q-snap goes. The head sort of feels disproportionate to the body, but then when I looked at the picture, the body will go almost to the bottom of the pattern. So I think when all is said and done, the head won't look weird, but now it sort of seems a little detached from the body, especially since I'm only working on the colors on the back of the tabby and haven't gotten more into the lighter colors in the belly, which would make the cat look a little bit more normal, so to speak. So I'm still enjoying working on this. It's my focus piece for this year, and it will probably be my focus piece next year as well. So I really am enjoying working on this one. That's Cats in the Toy Box. Next piece I will show you. This is in the garden from a old issue of Just Cross Stitch and Country Crafts from the 1990s. So this is what it will look like. The linen that I am using is a bit of a lighter color. And here's where I am now. Something behind this. So here's where I am now. So my goal this month was to get 2 birdhouses finished, and I achieved that goal. So I had already had these 2 completed, about half the stitching on this one and nothing done on this one. So I did a little bit of the greenery here. There is actually a pole that goes here, and I guess there are vines or something going up. I did a little bit of the greenery just to help me count so I could get this birdhouse in the right place. And I did all of it, including the back stitching, and the same with this one over here. And this is full coverage. It's hard to tell because of some of the blues that do match the fabric. But this is what I was working on for my theme piece for the Magazine Monthly Cross Stitch Challenge on Facebook. And the theme was kaleidoscope and colors. And so I know I didn't work on the most colorful parts of it, but there are a lot of beautiful flowers, especially pinks and purples, and this is one that I already done, but you can kind of see there's a butterfly up here, and there's a few other butterflies in it as well. So this one is going away probably for November, but it will come back out in December. Next piece I'd like to show you is White Owl by Artecy, artwork by Kayomi Harai. So this is what it will look like. And I think there are a number of companies that have charted her artwork, maybe not this exact piece, but I have seen other design houses, and ones that I don't honestly remember because I wasn't focusing on it, but ones that are reputable. So Artecy is not the only place to get her artwork. And I decided to work on this because for Magical Stitches, we had to work on something that related to the mark of Athena, and the owl is the symbol of Athena, so I thought that would be great. So I had the full moon done, but it was kind of sitting here floating, and so what I did was I pulled a lot of the colors around the moon and started filling them in. So you can still see I've got a few holes that I need to fill in, but now that the moon is sort of starting to sit in the sky, obviously I will finish up around here. So I'm not sure when I will pull this one out again, if I will do any more before my next video, but blue is one of my favorite colors, and so it's nice to pull this one out and work on the various shades of blue. Now obviously when I get down and really get into the owl, not as much blue, but right now I'm really loving working on this. Next piece I'd like to show you is another Artecy piece. This is the Green Dancer, artwork by Edgar Degas. So here's what it looks like. And here is where I am. So basically this is the width of the project. And so what I'm doing is I'm starting to take colors and just going across, and as I come across that color, I'm taking it and stitching in where I find it. So basically what that has resulted in is a lot of the colors in the tutu here are starting to fill in, and then as they come down and around, I'm doing that. Also sort of some of these dark background colors are getting pulled in as well. So this is one that I'm over 25% done. It's the most I have done on one of my real full coverage pieces. It is a paper pattern, so it does take me a little bit longer to actually stitch on it, but it is something that I don't know if it will be a focus piece next year, but I do hope to get a good amount of time into it because I would love to get a full coverage finish next year. And this is one of the candidates. The other candidate that might be a goal for the end of 2022, this is another Artecy piece. This is High Intensity, the cropped version, artwork by Agnew. And here's where I am. Basically, I'm sort of obviously the jaguar will continue to go on over there. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling colors from sort of going this way, because at some point I will want to move the Q-snap further to the right. So now you're really getting good definition on his hind leg, as well as his tail is really getting filled in nicely. And obviously it's hard to tell what this is. This negative space actually helps, but now you're starting to see sort of going into his belly, and just sort of started to fill it in. At some point I will pull out the 310 and start working on his spots, and I think that will really help define it nicely. But for now, again, I'm just going through and pulling colors, so that whenever I do choose to move the Q-snap, it moves. I'll have parts that are completely done and I don't have to worry about it. While this is my second smallest full coverage, and while I have completed less of this one than I did on Green Dancer because I do have it on Pattern Keeper, it moves, just stitching on it, it works out that I can get a lot more done in a shorter period of time. So not entirely sure which one I will focus on to get to a finish next year. I'll probably make that decision early next year, and then along with Cats in the Toy Box, which will not be a 2022 finish because that's got over 150,000 stitches, but I will focus on two and try and get good progress in all of them. Next piece I'd like to show you, this is another full coverage, Heaven and Earth Designs. This is artwork by Lisa Parker. This is Midnight Vigil, and it's the mini version. And here's where I am on this one. And so basically I've just also been pulling colors from the left side here, and then wherever they take me, I'm pulling them over. So again, I'm still working on these browns, and that led to sort of this sort of wood paneling here, like on the side of the window, and the frame in the window. I'm trying to think of, what's holding it, the individual panes of glass. And then there was, I did pull out, I think, some 791, which went into the actual curtains themselves, and just sort of did a little bit of that. So I didn't get a whole bunch of work done on this one, but I do really love this pattern, and I love all my patterns, and so this was a great opportunity. Can't remember, I think we had to stitch on something with fire because there was a candle, I think, for one of my groups. We had like a pop-up event, and so I said, great, I'm going to pull this out, and I put in about 350 stitches on that during a day. And so that's where I am on this one. And then for magical stitches this week, it's all related to spiders, so we either had to stitch on something with spiders or something with silk. I do actually have something with spiders, but it wasn't calling to me, so I pulled out my Hands Across the Sea, Jane Bannister, aka the one with the giant cats, because you know me, if it's got cats and the bigger they are, the more I want to stitch them. I'm not anywhere close to those cats. I started in the upper left, they're in the bottom right, but here's where I am now on this one. And so basically I put in about 350 stitches yesterday, and basically so I did a lot of this peach color here. This is a huge huge basket of flowers, and then as it popped up over here in the border, I did it as well. And so it had been a few months since I worked on this, probably 3 or 4 months, and this is one of the things I love about having a lot of projects, is that for whatever reason a project gets put away probably longer than I anticipated, and then when I pull it out again, I realize how much I love it. And I think if I was, I don't want to say monogamous, but let's say I only had 5 or 6 projects, I wouldn't have that feeling of falling in love with it again. So sometimes putting something away for a few months and pulling it back out again, I don't get the result as quickly as I would normally want, but nonetheless it sort of keeps me interested, and I just want to keep working on it, and that's how I feel about this. Obviously I have a long way to go on this one. I've already had my personalizations, because I think I did this little motif here, one stitch too far to the left, and then I had started this big old basket off of that, and it was in the wrong place, but nonetheless, I caught the mistake early on, and so I think it won't throw me off. I've marked it in the pattern. I put a little sticky that says, remember, this is a stitch off to the left, so that when I'm counting stuff, even though this basket is huge, I will remember not to count motifs off of that so that everything else ends up in the correct place in relation to the border. So, Jane Bannister. And the last project that I'm going to show you is, this is from a magazine that someone had pulled out and sent it to me. So this is patchwork, patriotic patchwork. It just says America. And so in No New Starts, they're calling it Knock-October. So the idea is to try and get as many projects done as you can. So here's where I am now. I had completed, I know I had completed up through the E and had done some of the R. And so I finished the R. I've now finished the I, the C is over halfway done, and then obviously just the A, which is just a couple of stitches there that I did to finish off the red that I had. And I will try and get this one done this month. This is a very quick stitch when I put my mind to it. One of the things I've discovered about Knock-October, while it's great to have that feeling of accomplishment, I don't like forcing myself to get a finish just for the sake of getting a finish. I stitched monogamously for so long on full coverages, so I would get, I would get towards the end of a page finish, and I would motivate myself to finish the page, and then I'd be like, oh, I have to start the next page, and but then I would get to like those last 2 pages and just want to push through, which was great. But when I've started doing some of these smaller ones, and there's not that many stitches to do on it, but I find that I'm losing some of the enjoyment of stitching in the urgency to, not the urgency, but the desire to get the completion. And so it may be, because these are such small projects that I've gotten some finishes on this month, that perhaps, I'm not even halfway done, but I only need a few thousand stitches to get them done. So I'll just throw the stitches in and be done with it. I'm doing that at the expense of enjoying it. So maybe when I get to some of my bigger projects, not the full coverages, but the others, as I get closer to the end of those, I might have a different feeling, but this desire to complete something for the sake of completing it is not something necessarily that I will continue to do just to say I got to finish. I want that organic feeling of being able to finish it. So anyhow, that's all of the stitching that I've had to show you. My plans for November, basically continue on with all of my games. For the magazine monthly challenge, the theme is home. So this is another older pattern from Cross Stitching Country Crafts, excuse me. And basically, this is a sort of a Thanksgiving prayer. It didn't really speak to me, but I did sort of love the part of the pattern up here. I mean, I do love some of the other motifs here as well, but I decided just to sort of do a small here and do it on that. So I'm almost done with the center motif there, and so I would very much would like to sort of finish the center motif, and then there's a lot of back stitching in there. So the cross stitches are probably about 100 cross stitches I have to do to fill it in, but then there's a lot of back stitching, like on these fields here. I mean, there's like wheat stalks here, and the reason why this reminds me of home, obviously, this looks like, this is wheat in the heartland of America, and it's my home. So even though I don't live in the heartland, I live in Florida, nonetheless, I thought this would work. And then for Whipco, one of the Whipco pieces that was drawn, this is Gone Batty, Brenda Gervais with my needle and thread. So here's where I am on this guy. So I would love to finish the cat. See how, if I'll be able to do that during November. But once I finish the cat, the rest of it, I have it in my mind that will go quickly. Obviously, there's a lot of motifs here. I have this batch done. I have a couple other little things done, but the cat really is the most solid stitching. Whether I, again, will get in my head, oh, it won't be that far from a finish. Once I get that cat done, it probably will be. But my goal for Whipco is 1,000 stitches. So hopefully that will at least complete the cat. My other Whipco piece, and this corresponds with letters of the month as well, it just was coincidence. So I'm doing this month, I skipped U because I didn't have anything that fit that. We were allowed to skip 2 letters. And so I am doing V and W. So Portrait of Veronica. So I think quite a few of you have seen this Mirabilia. And here's where I am. So my goal on this is, well, it's 1,000 stitches per whip go. And I really, really would love to finish her skin. I am doing it 1/1. And so I really would like to finish that. So then I'll at least finish her arm and her chest area so I can start getting into the rest of her dress. There's another arm that is hanging down that I will have to do 1/1. And it's taking much, much longer than I thought it would. And so I do like the effect, but I will have to think about on my future pretty ladies if that's the way I want to go. My guess is I will, because I'm a glutton for punishment. And then my other piece for letters of the month is Went to Wonderland for W. So again, I have a lot of old magazines I've been cross stitching for a long time. So this is from Just Cross Stitch and Country Crafts. And here is where I am. Oops, sorry, I did not get this folded before, or unfolded before I came on. So here's where I am now. Oops. So it would be great if it's only 500 stitches, so at least I can get all the cross stitches done in the house. There's a ton of back stitching in that house, so I don't think that I will be able to do that all in the month of November. I also, so that's all my stitching plans. I'm sure that there will be other things that will come up. I haven't figured out my acrostic yet for the Magazine Monthly Challenge. I can't remember what the word was. I'm sure it will come up. But I use that acrostic. I don't try and, I have goals for that. For this month, when the kaleidoscope was the theme and the word was color, I have met 4 of my 5 goals. The last goal for the letter L, I have another magazine piece, and it's called Love One Another, and I wanted to get all the lettering done, and I probably already have done, not this month, but in the past, half the letters, and I haven't touched it yet. So between now and the end of October, which is 3 or 4 days, it's highly unlikely, especially given that the last day of the month is Halloween, and I doubt I will get any stitching done that evening, simply because I'll be dealing with trick-or-treaters, and I'm very excited to be doing that. I obviously we chose not to give out candy last year. Things were just too difficult with the pandemic, and so there were trick-or-treaters in our neighborhood, but basically the association said, if you don't want trick-or-treaters, just don't turn your lights on outside, and so we did that. I don't decorate a lot for Halloween, but I do enjoy seeing the kids in their costumes and giving out candy and just watching the kids have a good time. So that is all I have for the stitching content. I don't have any haul this week. I do have Fabric of the Month coming, which I can show you in my next video. And I probably am visiting the cross stitch store in Ocala in a week and a half. So I'm sure I will have some from haul from there as well. But I do want to tell you about a couple things that I've been reading and watching. So the first thing I want to talk about is a mini series or limited series called 7 Seconds. This came out probably in 2018 or so, and it is a I don't want to say it's a crime drama, but because you sort of know who did it from the beginning, but it is about a police officer who he's distracted. His wife is being taken to the hospital, and he's driving, and it's sort of snowy and slushy. He's in a park, so there's no other vehicles around, and he's driving, he's not paying attention, and he hits something. And you find out pretty quickly that he has hit a teenager, a black teenager who was riding a bike, and he's on a sort of anti-drug unit in his police department, and he calls other people in the unit, and they basically convince him that to cover up the crime, and so they hide the evidence and they do all sorts of stuff, and then you find out that the kid actually had not died, and his body was found 12 hours later, or he was found 12 hours later, and he goes to the hospital, and then he subsequently died. And the assumption is that if he'd gone to the hospital immediately, he would have survived. So anyhow, it's that, that's, you can imagine the difficult story that comes out of that and the racial issues. 3 of the 4 cops who were involved are white. The 4th one is Puerto Rican. But it goes into, sort of what happens to his parents. He was an only child, about someone who is trying to, a black kid, and he has friends who are members of a gang, but his parents don't want him to join, and he has not joined, and all of that. And then about, of course, there's always the hidden witness when these come out, and just sort of what happens with her. So just really powerful. Regina King is in it, and she's one of my favorite actresses. I think she is amazing. I will watch anything with her in it, and so she delivers on this one as well. It is not a pretty bow on the end, wrapped up with a pretty bow type ending. I mean, it has a clear ending, but it's not, obviously the kid's never going to come back to life, so you don't expect that ending, but it doesn't give you the justice that you normally would get from this kind of show. And while I would say they probably a little bit over stereotype the cops in this, there is a very strong, they talk about the thin blue line. This is a really thick blue line. I think, this, again, the reason why I said it was done, I think in 2018 or 2019, was that it was done before George Floyd's murder. And I think watching this makes it why it's so much more remarkable what happened in that trial, where a lot of senior leadership within the police department came out and testified against Derek Chauvin, and basically said, this was wrong, what he did was wrong, and that willingness to say, what he did was not okay, and we are going to, I don't want to say turn our own, we are going to do what is right, and if that means that a police officer has to pay, so be it. I have a lot of respect for the police. They have a very difficult job, but I, within my own organization, when I did work, there were a lot of really great people, but it took one person doing something, I don't want to say badly, because we all make mistakes, but to do something that is wrong to really drag down the whole organization. And I think that's what too often happens in the police department, is that people look the other way, in the interest of, well, if we allow this to come out, it's going to make our job that much harder. And so I think this 7 seconds really delves into that. And then the other thing I'm watching, which is a comedy, but then it veers off into not being a comedy. It's called On My Block, and it is about four teenagers, and they're like 14 when it starts, who live in Los Angeles, and they are not members of a gang, but one of them has a brother, like a significantly older brother, who is a sort of a gang leader almost, and then other, and just sort of how they're existing in the world. And again, a lot of it is a comedy. They are teenagers, and they have these standard things, that silly, stupid things that teenagers do and say, but then all of a sudden something really dramatic will happen, and it sort of brings you back to reality. So I don't want to say any more than that, but it's very well written. We have started, I think, season 4. We're binge watching it, and they moved it forward 2 years, and I'm still not sold on this season. There seems to be a lot of drastic character changes, and they were a group of 4 friends, and through thick and thin, through lots of things, and all of a sudden, like, their whole group fell apart, and they sort of in flashbacks tell how that happened. I think part of it was that the actors all were getting older, and so they needed to sort of make it so, that the actors looked the ages of their characters. So anyhow, I'm enjoying that as well, called On My Block. And the one book that I read, or listened to in this case, was an audiobook that I want to recommend, is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. This is a young adult coming of age type book, and I for magical stitches, we had to read a young adult book if we wanted credit for it, and so not necessarily my favorite genre, because I sometimes get very frustrated, that teenagers are saving the world, and trust me, no one's saving the world as far as I can see. But nonetheless, that's what young adult does, and this is much more about two boys who become friends and just sort of discovering things about themselves and discovering sort of their place in the world, so to speak. And they are both Mexican American, coming from middle class families, and basically sort of how they're existing in El Paso, Texas, and sort of discovering things about themselves and their family and how to relate to the world. And I heard really good things about this, but because it was young adult, so I said, I'm just going to listen to an audiobook while I walk in the morning, and I get up and it's like 6:30 and I'm barely awake, and I pop in my headphones and I'm going to go walk outside and it's still dark. And, they say Random House or whatever publishing company presents. And then it's like, Aristotle and Dante discovered the secrets of the universe, read by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and like my eyes almost popped out of my head. I had no idea that he was the narrator, and he does a phenomenal job. And I really knew nothing about this book. Like, I didn't know that it was about Mexican American teenagers. I just knew nothing about it, beyond that a lot of people had recommended it. And so it was great having a narrator, like someone who is a skilled actor in his own right, who obviously is fluent in Spanish. So the whole book is in English, but occasionally a few phrases are thrown out in Spanish. And it's nice when you have a narrator who can just read them and know where to put the emphasis. I do speak some Spanish, and so some of the slang I don't get. They use words. Usually they help define them, but then there's other things where like there's a grandmother who speaks a little bit of Spanish, and they just read it, and it's great that I can understand what they're saying without waiting for them to sort of explain it in the text. So anyhow, if you like audiobooks, that is one I really recommend. Obviously, I'm sure reading it in print is fine as well. But just, I think for me, having Lin-Manuel Miranda read it just made it extra special. So that is all I have for you today. I'm going to come back in a couple of weeks, I hope. Until then, happy stitching, reading, and watching. Bye, everyone.